Okay, we are all set and ready to go for another weekly mentorship session with the Business Academy here on Zoom. Our weekly Tuesday virtual training session where we take your questions and we bring the experts here to help answer them. We have a number of guests in our waiting room that are jumping on today. We have front desk rock stars from around the country joining us from the Pacific Northwest. Dr. On's team, you guys are supposed to go, yeah, Pacific Northwest, Washington, because one of our guest speakers today is actually from Marysville, Washington, north of you guys, and she'll be sharing some best practices for you guys. We have Colorado in the house. I thought we did. They're not on yet. Okay, we got Arizona, Tucson, and Chandler, and Phoenix, and everywhere in between. Arizona, the high desert. What's going on? Perfect. Dr. Matt's coming in. Dr. Matt Alexander is going to be hosting our California training session this weekend in Livermore, California. Signing on right now. Dr. Matt, say what's up. There he is. Awesome. Can't wait to head out there. I'm flying out tomorrow, mañana, to my home state, and will be joined with being hosted by Dr. Matt Alexander and his team. Will be helming our training center and seminar this weekend at one of his many practices. So, Dr. Matt, thank you for hosting us this weekend.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Anybody, there's still room. You can get your last minute tickets to come join us at our workshop Friday or our entire training center Thursday through Sunday. I believe Dr. Matt will have something very special on the grill Friday night.
Yeah,
we're gonna be over at his place to party and have a good time. He'll be cooking for everybody with TBA, and he's gonna be hosting us in his wonderful, beautiful home. So thank you, sir, for doing all that.
For sure.
Absolutely.
I lived in Mexico for 2 years, so I'm going to make Mexican tacos for everybody.
Yes, I'm ready for that.
Authentic style. I know you've been missing it, Ethan.
Big time. I need some authentic California tacos, man. I love it. Beautiful. Dr. McKenzie's in the house with us as well. Good to see you, sir. The other Vancouver. So we got two Vancouvers hanging out with us today. Vancouver in the north and Vancouver in the south. Awesome. We got Corey. Hey, Corey. Is that the Corey? I think that's the Corey I know. Hey, Corey, what's going on? Sophia hanging out. Hey, for all you guys just popping on, Dr. McFarland, feel free to turn your webcams on, guys. Would love to see you in today's interactive session. We have a lot to cover and a lot to go over as we get rolling. Hey, Sophia, good to see you. Awesome. Perfect. Coastal Integrative Florida is in the house. More Arizona offices here as well. Good to see everybody here. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling today. Oh, and of course, cannot forget. Pro Wellness is joining us back in the building, literally back in their previous building. They had their grand reopening this last week. They had bought their dream building last year, 2 floors, multiple service centers, the most beautiful building you could think of. Over the holidays, you guys suffered from a tragic pipe burst that flooded the entire building. Unbelievable. That was back over the holidays. Had to gut the entire place pretty much. You guys had to move in thank God you had a temporary location to move to. And now 7 months later, you guys are back in the building. How does it look? Better than ever?
Yes.
So much better.
Awesome. Well, you guys definitely you traversed some pretty intense adversity there that was completely out of your control. And here we are now, bigger and better and stronger for it. So great job, guys. And we're going to wrap up this year strong for the rest of 2023. Great work. Awesome. Okay, I think we got everybody here right now. Probably have a few more pop in here. And again, if you're popping in, feel free to turn your webcam on so we can see you. Feel free to say hello as I introduce our guest host today. So I'm super pumped. I got to hang out at what might have been the most epic 4th of July party of all time up just north of Everett, Washington. I think we had over 100 plus people in attendance. In the backyard, you can kind of see the hint of the backyard behind Dr. Lovely and Sam McGill's webcam there. That's where it was. That's where the 4th of July party was hosted, with a fireworks show that I might have to find a way to share a picture there in the chat box that I have never seen before. It absolutely rivaled what the city was putting on and everything else that was happening around. You guys had the best fireworks show in town. You had your entire team there. You had members of the community there. You guys had friends and family and from across the entire city and everywhere else. And that was a pretty awesome 4th of July party. But that then translated into 2 weeks together, these last 2 weeks, where we were not only working hard and playing hard, Dr. Loveline, but also working with your team It was your third in-office delivery that you guys have had with the Business Academy. Not only have you completed your executive training, your staff have gone through tons of TBA seminars, courses, and online and in-person courses, but a third, and may I say, one of the more impactful in-office deliveries in a long time. So Dr. Loveline Sam McGill will be joining us today, PhD and co-owner of Symmetry Medical, as well as a 7th Division member. And you guys saw it in the copy. I know she's humble, but I'm going to say it for her. Not only I'm going to have her share her origin story a bit in a second, but they are gunning to open up their third location here any month now, any week now, I should say. Third location, and they're going to be rolling out this year. Can I spoiler alert this, Dr. Gill?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Dr. Sam, I'm going to spoiler alert. And they are gunning right now to actually take their current location, which is open up close to 30 patient hours and packed to the brim right now. They're going to be doubling up their hours into a 6-day-a-week, 60 clinical hour a week office with multiple shifts of assistant managers, and staff. And we set the whole layout and the strategy for that this weekend, because you guys are like 2 weeks out waiting list practice right now for new patients and ROFs, and it's packed in there. So this is going to be an opportunity for growth, but also be able to serve your patients the best way. And we're looking forward to sharing that with the Business Academy whenever we roll that out this year, what that looks like and how you can do the same thing. So Dr. Sam McGill, welcome to the session. I was kind of gloating about you there for a second, but maybe you can share with us, you guys didn't just pop out of the womb with multiple practices. Just a few years ago, it was a very different scenario. What is TBA? How has TBA played a role, not only just front desk training, but everything we offer here, in kind of the story of going from where you guys were at 4 years ago to where you guys are at now?
Yeah, it's been incredible, our journey with TBA. We started off when we had taken over a chiropractic only clinic before we integrated into medical. And at that time, I think we had 5 or 6 employees. Systems were not kind of put into place. And a lot of stuff was just kind of verbally communicated, and that's just not going to allow you to scale. So I think a big part of what TBA did, and even watching their growth in all of this, because we've been able to kind of grow alongside them, is to really implement a lot of the systems and protocols that are in place and have accountability coaches, because it's great to have these great visions and dreams, but if we don't have someone checking your executives, it's going to be really hard to kind of hold your other team members to that. And that's the nice thing with TBA. Not only did they check in with us as executives, but they were checking in with the team. And as they continue to develop their front desk course, their marketing course, and as we grew, we were able to say, okay, so our team understands how the TBA model works. And it's really easy to then tack on another course that's going to go ahead and really be able to offer them not only structure, but drill with them continuously. Because on a day-to-day basis, when the office is open, that's just not something that we can kind of commit to. It takes away from patient care, but it provides a safe kind of space to go ahead and do that, where the team is really locked into training. So it's been incrementally contributor of like why we've been able to grow and scale. And of course, having a coach like Ethan, that's been a huge part of how we've been able to make this happen. And yeah, so we're really, really grateful for TBA.
That's awesome. So back when I first met Dr. Gill, Dr. Sam McGill, you were managing a relatively a one location busy office alongside your husband while he was with patient care. You were also getting your PhD at the same time while running a busy office. And I'm just saying that because if you feel like you have a busy life, try running a practice while getting your PhD and in your final year. I mean, what was that like? What was the most important part for all the front desk rock stars here? How did you time manage, and how did you even get through that period? And what piece of advice do you give for the audience just on time management of a busy life?
Yeah, that was actually big. I think figuring out the things that needed to be executed, some of the hardest tasks that needed to be executed, and handling those throughout the day, really setting up that scene was big. Making time that this is a time that I'm going to be dedicating, whether auto work, I would take one day out of the office to work on my dissertation and just continue with research. And at that time, having someone there in the office who can kind of take over any job responsibilities. So the line of communication didn't have to stop, even though I wasn't there. So Dr. Gill and I, at that time, it was just 2 of us kind of leading this mission forward. So we were in communication with that. The whole purpose of getting these degrees or anything was to be able to kind of have this credentialing to lead this type of a mission forward. So I think keeping that vision in mind was huge. So working backwards from that, I think, was essential for us. And I think that's going to be implemented. I think we'll talk about that even with your front desk roster. There's an end goal that needs to be achieved. So working backwards, whether that's really figuring out what the leaky buckets are so we can have protocols, and implement those into place, an opportunity for training that gave us a big factor. It also allowed us to know, hey, as we're going to step away from the office, if I needed to step away, these are the protocols that kind of need to be into place, and making sure the team understands and agrees on those, so then they can handle it and they're not so dependent on me. Because that was difficult at first too. I think as we grew as leaders, we felt that we needed to be there, we needed to solve all the problems for them. And it just, as we're continuing to scale, we were starting to get frustrated of why do they keep coming to us to solve these problems? But having that self-reflection was really big in this whole journey to say, I think we need to have a team that can be these executives and problem solve on their own and present us with solutions. And that's how we're going to kind of move forward. But going back to that comment of managing that degree and then still wanting this growth precipice, because in all of that we were growing and then COVID was happening. But I think a big part of it was the time management aspect of really understanding what our big goal was going to be and working backwards from that, and having strong leaders around you. I think if I was blessed to have a great partner and husband and all this that was able to kind of drive the mission forward, and we were able to identify gaps and know where our strong suits are, so we're not stepping on each other's toes while we're doing this.
Totally. And you guys have been an amazing inspiration, I think, to not only us, but to a lot of people. And you guys have developed just a tremendous team with Symmetry Medical and the investments you guys put in them. So thank you for that. And I'm gonna kind of touch base on that here in a second. But I do want to introduce another co-host of ours, one of my favorite people in the world. I have Violet. Well, I don't know. It says I thought it was Violet Rugi, because that's how I know you, Violet. Violet knows me. She's I think it's to my left here. And Violet's known me ever since my very, very, very first days of the Business Academy. She was one of the very first clients I ever worked with, almost 11 years ago now. And she knew me back when I had hair. I was in my 20s. I was a little wild child up there in the training center, and I was learning along the way myself. And I learned a lot from you guys, and you guys became not only great friends, but kind of in this journey together as you guys grow your practice and ascend in your success with TBA. So it's you've learned these front desk rockstar systems inside and out, Violet. You've practiced and drilled and implemented these systems over the course of hundreds or thousands of hours over the years. And so there's nobody better to have on this than my good friend Violet that's going to be joining us today. And you're the office manager, and you run that. I mean, if there's anybody that runs that practice, it's you. And I think you have some insight to share with us as well. So maybe you could share briefly, Violet, a little bit about your journey with the Business Academy over the last decade.
Of course. Hi. Hi, everybody. Yes, Ethan, is amazing to see you grow so much since I first met you. It's just an awesome journey. And
I think there's one other person on the webinar, which is Dr. Schwartz, who's hanging out, who met me back then as well. And I don't know if he would say too many favorable things. Maybe he has something good to say, but I'm glad you had something good to say too.
I saw you.
Yep. Good. I got
lots of interesting things to say. All of them good, Ethan.
Well, Violet, what is your, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. What's your journey been like with TBA, especially these front desk systems, and how you've been able to use them to help serve patients better?
So definitely has helped me narrow down where my weaknesses were with the front desk. I am not somebody who likes to call people on a call and keep them accountable. So having the systems with the little cheat sheets, what to say, what to do, how to handle certain situation, helped me be more confident with myself in keeping people on the track. And I'm happy to say that we have very small amount of people who are not able to keep their appointments on a weekly basis. There's always a way now I can find a time for them to come in and do the care, take the care they need. So that was one of my biggest hurdles for me, keeping them accountable. I guess I had something against me being held accountable.
You had to go over that in order to hold someone else accountable to their program, right?
Right. Yes.
Well, good. What I want everyone to do right now on the Zoom session, what I want you guys to do right now, I want to get a running list going in the chat box so we can address throughout today's session. If you can, what are the, and referring to the front desk specifically, what are the patient concerns or objections that you're receiving that's keeping them from staying and keeping and finishing their recommended care program all the way through to completion? What are the common objections that you're getting that you're having a hard time overcoming? Or they're winning the battle when it comes to, their compliance with the program. So what are some of the key questions, issues, objections, or what are some, if you, outside of, what are some struggles you have when it comes to managing a busy patient schedule, managing patient flow, managing the responsibilities of the front desk? What struggles are you having now? If there's one thing that, and Dr. Sam McGill's here today to share, I think, and will be really insightful is, I've seen their schedule. It's multiple columns, 25 plus appointment types. They do, I mean, how many service centers would you say your practice just run on a daily basis, Dr. Sam McGill?
I think between 7 and 8 in our one location.
Yeah, your one location between 7 and 8 service centers, right? So you're talking, there's laser, there's going to be chiropractic, there's going to be rehab, there's going to be passive therapies. You're going to have obviously nutritional programs that are being done. You have exams of all kinds, medical providers, naturopaths that are there performing various holistic injections and different types of treatments. You have your medical provider that also is there too. Medical doctor, Dr. Jackson, who's there a day a week as well, performing other service centers too. So you have a very busy office with a high volume of patients. So if you guys are struggling with, how do I manage a busy schedule? How do I time block things effectively so the office runs smooth? Type that in the chat box or write that down for yourself. We're going to tape that up today as well with our guest speakers today and let them share their best practices on how to guide you along the path there to be better. So again, issues or questions or objections or what you're running into with patients when it comes to staying compliant to their program they've been recommended by the doctor, struggles that you're having that you want to troubleshoot with the front desk, managing patient flow, patient appointment times, managing a busy schedule effectively, managing, obviously doctor times or any other areas of administrative struggle that you have at the front desk. It's one that you have a lot of plate spinning all at once. And we're here to help you with that too. So again, keep the running list going, guys. We want to be able to help you with that today and dive into that too. So with that being said, let's start off, Dr. Sam McGill. What do you look for? Like you have an amazing, if Tracy's watching or if anybody from the office is watching, Tracy's just a freaking rock star up there at the front desk with Symmetry Medical.
Yes.
And everybody else that's trained in this, that's worn that hat in your practice, what are some of the traits or qualities that you find really allow for a front desk, not just to be a front desk receptionist, but to be a front desk rock star? And like you said, think with the end in mind and really help people get through their programs to completion and run an effective schedule. What do some of those qualities look like?
They have to have awareness of everything around them. It's not a relationship between the front desk person, the person they're talking to and their computer, but we have 2 front desk people, the way our office is kind of set up. We call them first impressions coordinators because they're doing more than just basic receptionist responsibilities. And I think that mindset is really big for our front team to kind of understand that they are the first and foremost bringing a great impression of the company. They are the face of the company. So they're there to provide a complete Ritz-Carlton experience. So from the minute that patient walks in, they know our protocol is within 5 seconds, they have to be greeted. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have Mod Pizza around you, but as soon as you walk into Mod Pizza, everyone, no matter what they're doing, what their responsibility is, they're greeting you. And it's just that sense of welcoming and healing that you can just feel. So that's really big. We need someone who's going to be enthusiastic and very charismatic, not afraid to kind of step outside the bubble, and also kind of have everyone in the office is going to be a salesperson, right? So the front is very much has to be dialed in with understanding that their role is also sales, and they're there to sell health to patients. And that mindset is really critical to kind of dive in. They have to be able to multitask, but with multitasking, and that's just, hey, I can schedule and answer the phone, but really understand how to problem solve in that and what's going to be the most benefit as they're kind of going through their day-to-day, daily kind of checklists or whatever they're doing. That's kind of key as well.
That's huge. If I could dovetail that, we have a few new front desk rock stars on today. You guys know who I'm looking right at you. I see you. The new front desk team members. What advice would you give to a brand new first impressions coordinator, front desk rock star, just starting their first week or their first month at their practice?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really key to figure out who your mentor or your lead's going to be in training you, and then kind of go through whatever that training protocol is going to be with them. So we give a pretty hefty training binder to everybody, along with, there's two aspects of it. One's going to be the TBA front desk course that kind of comes in a little bit later. We put together pretty lengthy protocols with timelines. Hey, week one, this is kind of what we want you to be proficient in. And this is where we're going to do a check-in. Week two, this is what we're going to do. So we lay that out pretty intensely. And then on top of that, there's a secondary packet that goes through all types of scripting, what objections that they can see in the front, scripting for that, what their objective is going to be. And we're dialing in from your board, like what their valuable final product is. So they know that they're leading with an end in mind, that all of these phone calls and messages and follow-ups and all the Excel spreadsheets that they kind of have to keep track of, there's a big goal in the end of this. So helping them see that vision and reiterating it. So having that mentor, that trainer kind of really be at the front with the person is going to be key. We've done it where we've kind of maybe checked in a couple times, like, hey, you're going to be training. We'll put another team member next to you. They'll train you. But when an office is as busy, even as ours, it gets really hard to train because all you're doing is kind of going through the motions, because most people are so good at what they do. They're not taking the time to explain the why behind everything that they're doing, so that person can understand it's not just a mindless click or an appointment that they're scheduling. There's a purpose behind it. So having one dedicated person who's going to be seeing that person through and through, because if the front fails, the whole entire office fails. I mean, they're the kind of the glue holding everything together. And honing in on Tracy's skills, she's really great at that. She has really great awareness of kind of what's happening around her. So if patients are even talking in the lobby, she can kind of figure out what their perception is, what their tone level is, and she matches that really well. If they're complaining, oh, my neck is kind of hurting, like, oh no, let me get that information back to our team so they can kind of work on that. And then at the end, our chiro can really figure out what's going on. So we have walkie systems, so they're able to kind of walkie and communicate that. So all that comes with time, but making sure that there's those check-ins and you're holding that front member accountable to not only the things that they're being trained in, but you're checking them to see that, are they doing it efficiently? Are they understanding what they're supposed to be performing? And then just drilling stuff with them that they're not getting, like going through the scripts again and again and again. Yeah, they're going to put their own pizzazz on it, but as long as there's a reason those scripts were written the way they were written, and helping them understand that we want them to be the best possible front that they can be. So it's really important to like kind of stick to those things.
Awesome. That's great. I think that's great advice. That's good. And I think it's the drilling with you do with your team as often as possible. It doesn't just start and end with the business academy. It's continuing that process in the office as much as possible to just continue to be proficient, right? So practice. So if you're a veteran front desk rock star, or you're brand new or very new at this role, the best thing you could do is just, again, learn your systems inside and out. Those manuals and protocols and scripting, that is your Bible. You should know that thing front and back, inside and out, and practice. And again, get curious, ask questions, and build proficiency along the way. If you just joined us right now, I know some of us just popping in for today's session. Do me a favor, go to the chat box, guys. If you're what objections are you running into from patients that you're having a hard time overcoming when it comes to sticking and staying on their doctor's recommended or their provider's prescribed care program? I want you to put those objections in the chat box. Also, where do you struggle or need the most help with when running the front? There's a lot that goes on every day, a lot of plates that you have to spin. What areas do we want to address today? We have another 25, 30 minutes. We're going to take these things up. So again, I want to get that nice, big, long list of questions and objections here. So with that being said, keep those coming, guys. Love it. Financial objections, great. Perfect. Dr. Schwartz, yes, sir.
Okay, I can't stay on for very long, so that's why I wanted to ask
You're front of the line.
So here's the thing. We are hiring a new front desk person. So right now, my wife, and God bless her for being available to do this, is at the front desk. We are all covering, we're down 2 people. So we're all covering multiple positions in the office. We're learning as we do this that the front desk, and we already know it because I wrote a manual for the front desk person to learn, has a lot of detail to it. And it's when you get busy, it's chaos, and I don't know how to get past the chaos. Forget the scripts, forget the procedures. I understand we have those in place, but it's the stuff that doesn't fit into the procedures, into the scripts. Like, this person needs a referral to an orthopedist because they have a frozen shoulder and I can't help them. Or this person asked me to write a note to their place of employment saying that they can't lift anything. Or there's just endless amounts of things that aren't falling into the normal day-to-day routine that you guys cover. I don't know how to handle that. And that's really where the chaos comes. And it's just overwhelming. And we're seeing that more because now we have to handle the front desk. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Excellent question, right? It's all that, all those little, it's all the in-between fires that come up, right, Dr. Gill? So Dr. SG, how would you address that question? That concern?
Yeah, in chaos we thrive, but those day-to-day things, I think that there's a blessing here since you and your wife are kind of overseeing the front more. So it sounds like your wife, which is great. So you're able to kind of see all those little fires, and from that, you're going to be able to now develop protocol. So there's a silver lining in all of this because you're going to be able to dial this in to make sure, since you're hiring, that person's going to be proficient in handling this. So there's the silver lining. In the way that we handle it is we have our case managers, everyone has their hat, and within their hat, they're kind of knowing these are the things that they're responsible for in the front. So our front isn't responsible for kind of handling that because it kind of boggles them down with 300 plus patient visits a week that we're seeing. There's just no way for the front to be taken away from offering that Ritz-Carlton experience. So then we made sure that like our case managers and our intake coordinators are hatted to know what the streamline is going to be. So if there is a recommendation for a referral, the case manager can kind of oversee it, and then she hands it to like an intake coordinator. Now our office is big enough that we can divide these roles, but when we weren't, even a year ago, that wasn't who we were. So the case manager was able to kind of see that referral, and it was part of their day-to-day task to make sure all those were kind of done and get whatever signatures they did from the provider. So it wasn't something that the front handled. I think in this, you're going to see when the front, we will learn this as well. When team members get overwhelmed or tasks aren't getting done, it's either going to be like that workload issue that's occurring, which I think a lot gets put on the front. So we really need to streamline because they're there for a reason. So if they're doing all these other things on a day-to-day basis, that's what the back end team is there to support each other with, to make sure that they're not being inundated and they can still offer a great patient experience and make sure patients are following through with care, or they're getting reschedules done, or they're collecting payments. That's really what the goal is of the front. So the back end of the team, everyone kind of needs to step up, and then they need their clear hats. And then those specifics need to be written in there. Like someone needs to be in charge of referrals, or if there's a patient person that can't be, offered into care here, these are the next steps that are going to be happening. In our office, it's the case managers that kind of see it, and then our intake coordinator. So streamlining that might be really helpful.
So your thought is that maybe I'm putting the wrong person in charge of handling this day-to-day chaos. And maybe it should be some of the back end people who I also have to hire, but that's a different story. But okay.
In that, it becomes like three things. Is it a workload issue for that team member? Is it a training issue? If you have a clear manual of things that are written, most of the time, like I think we all want everyone to be well trained. And I think we can, if everything's had it and the patients or the persons agree that these are my job expectations, it's usually not that. Or is it an ethics issue where they just don't want to do it? They don't agree with something, whatever it is. But we started finding out when we started looking at it within those three buckets that it ended up being workload issues for people, or they were handling things that were taking them away from that end goal of like their VFP. So we started streamlining positions and hiring with intent for that, or training our people inside the office and saying, hey, this is the time that you're going to be doing this. And then we're going to open up maybe a Friday, you get to come in earlier, Tuesday, Thursday morning, or these are the times you get extra hours, or we've position people and move them to salary. So they're not asking us to do this because we have such willing employees, and the ones that are willing, we're like, we're going to take you to salary. We trust you. You're able to do this. These are the job expectations outside of these hours that you're going to fulfill. So we just kind of worked around with our team and really had these conversations with them to see what would be the best fit.
Okay. Listen, thank you. You gave me some food for thought. I appreciate it a great deal.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Perfect. I'm gonna move over to Violet or Dr. Sam McGill for these. I'd love you guys to have you guys pop up the chat box now. Thank you guys for your input there on what you've been running into, objections from patients, issues at the front that you're having. So Violet, I'm gonna let you just kind of peruse through there and take up the first one that you'd like. Whichever one you want to jump that's most applicable for you. We got things like, insurance won't pay for it. They got issues with work schedule, not enough time, vacations, issues with insurance is changing. They don't need to finish their plan because they're out of pain. So they got through the first phase of care. I'm out of pain, I'm fine. Excuses from patients, time, money, need to get my hair did, all that kind of stuff. Whichever one, Violet, feel free to jump in with whichever one you're most comfortable with first. You want to give your take on.
Sure. My favorite one is, hey, I feel pretty good. I don't need to come anymore. So actually, I got to do this yesterday. I'm like, hey, that's amazing. Remember? And then pull out the phases of care pamphlet, and I showed the timeline. And I'm going to remember, we are at this level right now. You're going through this treatment. Are we stabilizing the spine yet? Are we at that level yet? And they go, oh, no. And then we go back to the dental analogy with the braces. And they go, oh, that's right. I need to find more time. And then what happens is I just tell them, let's set up I call it a progress exam now for your next visit. And then you and doctor, we can decide, okay, what is your frequency to come in? So that usually helps the patient stay on track, even if it's not 3 times a week. A lot of times it'll be 2 or once a week, depending on what the doctor finds.
That's great. I love that. So it's literally bringing out, again, if you're, make sure case managers and doctors, when you're doing that day 1 and day 2, you should be using that types of care or phases of care pamphlet that breaks down the 3 phases of care for that patient. So they know, again, you plant the seed as to why they're doing care far beyond their pain being gone, so that they understand that there's a functional improvements to make, as well as moving into health, wellness, and vitality of care. So that should be framed in the beginning and then reiterated at the front desk using the same material that was covered. Dr. Sam McGill, do you have anything else you want to share on that?
No, I think that part is key in making sure that patient education piece is happening with every single person that they're interacting with in the office. So the front is there, but then if they're seeing rehab, cold laser, their chiro, they're all reiterating that same kind of message in that conversation. So everyone's working as a pretty well-oiled machine with reiterating that patient education point. I think that's great.
It's key. Special guest appearance also. Guest appearance number 3, Dr. Joe Dinelli, upstate New York. Right before I went and hung out with Dr. Sam McGill and the Gills, I was up in near Rochester, Lima, Watkins Glen, Finger Lakes, all that good stuff. Dr. Dinelli gone from one clinic now, second location, looking at multiple locations now. He's gunning in the race for you guys, Dr. Sam McGill. He's looking at a 3rd and a 4th location right now. But Dr. Dinelli, same question for you. You serve your community with whole health programs in your office, not just acute pain management. What happens when a patient sees the front desk, sees Stephanie or sees, Morgan or any one of your team members or yourself, and they say, oh, I'm out of pain, I'm fine. What is your best re-education point on how to talk to that patient at the front desk when they feel like they're done with care and when they're out of pain?
Okay, so I think for starters, it's trying to make sure it never gets to that point, right? So we always want to educate patients along the way. So I know me personally, when I'm working on somebody, I am pointing out every visit what is going on with them. I'm continuously educating them along the way. So the best way to handle that is the doctor themselves in the room. I mean, you're palpating every single time you see them. And when I'm pointing these areas out, especially if they let's say they come to me and they're saying, I don't need to come in. Well, okay, well, I have the pamphlets in the room, but what I do is I just be in agreement with them. All right, that's great. I get them on the table and I will always find something wrong with them. And I'm making sure to point those areas out. And it's tying that in and saying, okay, well, yeah, this has only been going on for this long. Okay, well, we've been treating for this long. Well, this has been going on for this many years. And we just kind of start working through why they feel the way they feel. And then I pull out the packets afterwards. Well, this is why, because we're still right here in this phase. That's great. You feel great, Well, obviously I'm still finding things right here. So I try to handle it right there in the room before it ever gets there. If it gets to the front desk, or let's say even a CA, we implemented that flag system now. So what we're doing is we use a task manager specifically in Google Chats now, because we have the cloud for ChiroTouch instead of the server, so we don't have a message system now. But we use a red flag and we pull that up. So whenever a CA or another staff member hears something about the patient saying, "Oh, I'm feeling great," or they're just kind of nonchalant about their appointments, that's an indicator now that the CA must message the doctor and raise that red flag to say, "Hey, look at this message that I sent you," before you even walk into the room. So the doctor now is addressing that problem right when it first kind of the seed is planted, if you want to think of it that way. And then now you can educate the patient there before it gets to the front desk again. If it ever gets to the front desk, then we want to make sure we're scheduling an appointment with case manager, because they'll have a little bit more time to discuss some things and train the patient, especially they brought up, all those education points, especially because I have one of my case managers, she does everything on her own. I don't even see people on day 2s anymore. So, they already have that rapport built with that person. So I try to schedule it with them. And then if it's something specifically medical, question wise there, I will handle it. But otherwise, my case manager, she can handle any of the financial problems. If somebody is saying I can't afford it or anything like that, she works magic on trying to rework care or spread out payments or whatever needs to be done to ensure the patient's still coming in. But if you have that master of knowing how to educate and how to work financials, then you make sure that patient sits down and schedules with that person and gets in the office. And of course, you're going to get this the few patients that will absolutely refuse to come in. I don't want to say sometimes you've lost them, but it's very hard to get them back once they've already kind of made up their mind that they're not coming back in no matter what. That's what makes it so important to catch them before they ever get to that point. Because most of the time by then they've already made up their mind and it doesn't matter what you say.
This is really good. I like if you guys all took really good notes, it's a really good question, guys, because there's things you can say to the patient which are still very, very valid to that patient when they're mentioning it. But at the same time, there's plenty of opportunities between chiropractic assistants, doctors, as well as the front desk to listen to the indications of what patients are saying before it ever gets to that point. Again, red flag to the doctor, it's addressed, or to the case manager based on whatever the concerns might be. So really, really good point. Keeping a proactive view on that is going to be key.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
and
using some of those systems so that way that way everybody in the office can recognize what's happening, because sometimes we don't always see our messages if we're running around from patient to patient. That's why I kind of like that flag system that we kind of took for Dahmer's office. Just because it's that indicator, it's that big flash right in your face to say, "Oh crap, something's going on in that room. I need to look at that and get it addressed right then and there." Just definitely attack the problem before it grows to a point where you can't solve it.
Exactly. Dr. Sam McGill, go ahead and I'll let you jump in there too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all this is great. And I think the other part of it is our front team knows exactly the types of scripting and verbiage the rest of our team kind of knows. So they're all on the same page with that. And I think that's something that Violet kind of mentioned before as well. And that's essential because at that day 1 appointment or the day 2, when our case manager is going over the ROF, we ask for that commitment. Hey, like, where are you at? Where are you at in your commitment level? And we don't take anybody less than an 8 on their commitment level. How motivated are you to kind of get better? And are you able to come in and commit to 3 times a week care for the treatment plan that we prescribed? So since our first impressions coordinators are so aware of that, when patients ever bring anything like that up, be like, hey, you made an agreement. We're going to see you through to make sure that you're not done until it's 100% and this never comes back again, because that's what we don't want. And then they're their accountability coach even. So they'll joke around and say, hey, I'm your accountability coach and I know you're starting to get better. And they could use a gym analogy. I've heard them use that and say, you're finally seeing gains and this is no time to stop. We got to keep this going. And we're striving for overall wellness. And so just having that dialogue at the front, since our patients are coming in 3 times a week, they have that rapport, and that's a part of that Ritz-Carlton experience, and then holding that patient back to the agreement that they've made. So that's really big too. So understanding, yes, there's systems at the front, but the front needs to be dialed in with everything else that's happening behind them and the team and the scripts as well. And so that's something that's really well done and implemented in our office to make sure that if there are any snags, the verbiage or anything isn't being changed and the patient's like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. You're right, you're right, you're right.
Because they should be hearing it multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good.
And I would also add, even with the front desk, and I know Ethan, we went through this, during the IOD, is the communication from the front desk, just the way of how you address the patient when they're coming in, always using their name, making sure that you're the front desk is happy, they're smiling, they're building that rapport with the patient. Because if you think about it, if they're making that phone call, or somebody's trying to quit care, or they are trying to miss an appointment because it's not that important, you're more apt to listen to the front desk if you like the front desk and they're more of a friend than just an employee that is in. So, you really start working that in. And, my front desk, whenever, or any of my front desks, when they start building that rapport with the patient right there in person, it makes the phone conversation so much more easier when we're trying to keep them on point. If there's already that ARC right then and there, that will help you guys also keep these patients a little bit more on point if they have that connection with the front desk right from the get-go. Just using their name, waving to them, even if you got 1,000 things going on at the front desk, which I know typically happens, just waving, smiling, acknowledging that they're there. Those people will appreciate that, and they'll be more apt to listen in the long run too.
Huge. Love that. That's great. Guys, tons of great advice. I know that, Sophia, that was your question there, but I'm sure everyone has also had that same question, right? So tons of notes you could take that. Sophia, did we sufficiently give you a few resources to move forward with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate
good.
it.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, let me go to the general one that keeps coming up here. And, we can just jump in here. And also, Rita and Nelson, you guys can jump into it at any point in time. You guys are freaking kicking ass over there, and you guys are front desk rock stars extreme. So next one, time, whether there's something I went over with the team at Symmetry, right? There's a season for every reason, meaning it's going to be school season, kids going into school, back to school, kids coming out of school. It's summertime. It's nice. It's summertime. It's too hot. It's summertime. It's Florida. And there's too much traffic with all the, it's on season for Florida, and there's traffic everywhere. It's holidays, it's kids' birthdays and recitals, and it's sports time, and it's Super Bowl time, and it's whatever time. I mean, there's going to be a season for every reason. So time will always be an objection or a complaint or an excuse from the patient. So no matter what that is, there's a few examples you guys gave here in the comments section with vacations or with work and with whatever, right? The list can go on endlessly. We spend the rest of this webinar listing them all out. So how do we address that? We can't solve the patient's schedule for them, meaning we can't plan their week out for them. How do we, either scripting, solutions, critical thinking, solve the problem of patients not coming and having an objection around time? Where do we start? And how do we handle that? And I'll let any one of you guys between Violet, Dr. Sam McGill, Rita and Nelson, Dr. Danelle, you guys can jump in and grab this one first.
I would say for a lot of those patients that are mentioning time, I guess I would handle it the same way that I handle them when they're doing stretches and exercises. When they say they don't have enough time for that either, of course, I don't have my 5 minutes in a day. It's okay. What part of the day, what part of the week works best for you? And I mean, even having that conversation, whether it's doctor, case manager, front desk, it's all right. Well, we know this is coming up. We know you have a tough schedule coming up. Is it mornings or afternoons work better? Which one works better around you? Do we need to get at the end of the day? Can we get during your lunch hour? Just kind of learning that patient's schedule a little bit and taking notes on that too. put that in the patient profile. I can't tell you how many times we put alerts on patients' screens just to kind of give us a little bit of heads up, because you're not going to remember everything for every single patient. But when you start getting that patient's, okay, let's say you got, a mom that has 3 kids and they're all in soccer. Okay. And how are you going to work around that? Is there a point between work and getting the kids to practice, or is it easier to get them in even before work even starts? You got to learn that from the patient to the best of your ability, because you will work around their convenience to the best that you can. And then if that still doesn't work, then you got to start finding those commitment levels as well. Because even if there is, everybody's got some point of time in a day where they can make something happen. And if they're still coming up with it, it's just an excuse at that point. So you got to kind of sit them down and handle it at one of the appointments and be like, hey, I know life is busy, but how are we ever going to get you better? And just be frank with them. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to help you? Do you not want me to help you? But you got to sit down and have that tough conversation and just get it out. Maybe the time is not really the actual objection. It's they feel better. They don't feel like it's helping, or they're just tired of coming in so often. It could be something they just are too afraid to tell the doctor or a CA in the office, so they just use time as an excuse. So you got to kind of be frank with them and be like, all right, what is going on? And it's always easier to do that in person than over the phone. So when they are in for that appointment, if they keep fighting, that's the time you got to confront them. Don't push it off and wait until they're out of the office. Then you got to handle it over the phone.
It's a good point. Very good point. Okay, I'm going to dovetail that to Dr. Sam McGill. I'm going to toss over to you and to Violet, and then we're going to keep this conversation going. Yeah, how do you there's patients that are legitimately struggling with their schedule, and there's times they're making excuses and complaints, and there's somewhere in the middle. I'm the front desk, I'm busy, I can't resolve this. How do I tackle this in addition to that?
Yeah, time is just going to be a common denominator. I think we've already talked about excuse that kind of comes up a lot. So that very first interaction, the case manager, once the day 2 is complete, some of our best practices include that case manager is doing a handoff to the front and saying, okay, hey, we have Tracy here. We're so excited to get her handled into care. And then they reiterate the patient why. So the why is handed off, which is going to come back in my conversation again. And then we also get, okay, so there's some travel that's going to be coming up. They're not available these days and they prefer. So the case manager's already gotten a commitment of availability in that room when they've completed that day 2. So they already know, hey, they prefer, Monday, Wednesday, Friday evenings, done. So then our front impression coordinator, they know that. They're like, okay, we're so excited. I can see you got some travel, so we're going to be working with you. Anything else that you want now that maybe you have an opportunity to think about that could be coming up? And so they're able to kind of, recheck their schedule a little bit more and say, let's get a next couple of appointments on the board and we're going to work on that schedule for you. So all of those dates are coming directly from the patient. And then the first impressions coordinator also say, I'm going to be that accountability person for you. So if anything changes, or you notice that once we give you that full schedule, we need to switch around those dates, you let me know and I'm going to work with you to making sure that this is done. Now, that's all done that first day. The next time they get their schedule, and then usually the patients will review it and they'll be like, you know what, I had a chance to think about it. These days aren't going to work. So we're already handling those future issues right then and there. In the day-to-day stuff where they're sick or life has come in the way or they can't get off of work, and time continues to be that objection, like, I know I said this and my boss was on the same page with giving me lunch breaks, but we have this new project coming up, so I just can't commit to work. Be like, you know what, not a problem. I hear that, that's pretty cool that you got these new responsibilities at work, but it took you so long. You were dealing with this knee pain for over 15 years to make yourself a priority. And it would break my heart if you weren't your number one person right now. So what do we got to do to get you back in? So what other days can we make work? And be like, I'm going to work magic on my end to make sure that you still stay that priority, because you got a hike that you want to do in 6 months and it's pretty big and you've been prepping for it. So reiterating that why again to the patient, because that was their main reason to come in. And if it's a true why, that's going to resonate with the patient really well, and having that dialogue. So the front's trained really well on that scripting. So those time objections get handled that way. If the patient doesn't even want to have those conversations and they start no call, no showing, we add them to a missed appointment list, and we will send out email and text message through Demand Force. We send out a blast to them. We also call the patient and say, hey, we're touching base with you, and we'll try to catch them at multiple times. And usually we're pretty successful if we just kind of play around with our schedule to get them at those different places and say, hey, I know you've been missing some appointments. I want to make sure that we can get you in because you were seeing some results here. And so that's usually a way for us to get the patient handled again and maybe figure out a new schedule that's going to work a little bit better. And that's worked really well for us.
That's perfect. That's really good advice. If you guys aren't yet, make sure your case manager is getting that time commitment in the day too. And that case manager or doctor, if that's you, you need to hand that patient off to the front desk, pass the baton to them and do a really good accountability partner script about the front desk. You're in a place of power with the patient, pass the power to the front desk, first impressions coordinator to the front desk. That gives them kind of that new role and introduction to the patient. Make sure all new patients, front desk rock stars, you introduce yourself as the accountability partner to that patient at the very beginning and what that means. And then know their why, know their ruin, know their health goal, know their story, right? Know all these things, but every single one of your patients, so you can personalize your accountability conversation around what the patient wants. And remember, WIIFM, what's in it for me? WIIFM, that is the patient's radio station they tune into. WIIFM. They're constantly thinking, this sounds great. What's in it for me? I appreciate you telling me this. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? They don't care what the doctor says most of the time. They want to know what's in it for me, right? And what's in it for them is getting their life back specific to their health goals, specific to their ruin. So Dr. Loveline's point on that is you got to know the story and the health goals of every single one of your patients. And if you're new, you got to learn it fast. And if you're already been with your practice for a while, make sure it's been established and you have that there as well. Violet, we covered a lot of ground there, but Violet, any other successful actions or best practices there regarding handling patients that have time issues and reasons they can't come in, they're missing appointments and they're somewhat not compliant with care?
There's actually one for me that I've been implementing lately, and it is important to make sure that the patient is set up from the beginning till the end with the treatment plan on a calendar. And you print it out for them, have them double check what works, doesn't work. And what came up lately for me with a couple of patients is they're going for treatment for 3 weeks, twice a week, doing decompression, whatever they do, and they go, suddenly my schedule changes. I'm like, okay, are we still able to keep those days? They go, yes, I can. However, the time is not going to work, and my time is so fluctuating because I'm my own boss. I have meetings. I need to call in, let you know what time I can come in. Then all I just say, okay, we're in the office from 10 till 1 and 3 to 7 or whatever the time is. And I said, can you please text message me when you're on your way so I know that you're here and make sure that the table is available for you. Otherwise, we'll do the best we can out of the treatment plan the doctor's recommending. And so far, this person has been able to keep all of his appointments. And luckily, we have now 2 decompression tables. One is a chair, it's a table, so we can go back and forth and still give him some kind of treatment that's comparable to what the doctor recommended.
Perfect. You guys took that word for word, right? Rachel got that. I know Sierra was taking good notes. Sophia got that one. Awesome. Good. The team with Dr. Tayon, thumbs up. You got that? Good. Practice, practice, practice. That's the script you got to be comfortable. No ums, no ers. Say it confidently. Good eye contact. The patient will follow your lead. We're tight on time here, but I have one more I want to get to. I know for everyone here that I want to make sure we can address. And we'll be quick with these answers here. Okay. 2 minute, between everybody here if we can. Busy schedules. Again, I mean, Dr. Sam McGill, you guys have, 7 to 8 service centers, multiple providers, lots of text. There's a ton happening, right? And when I look at your guys' schedule, and for many of you guys look at your schedule, it's like one big rainbow. It's like a rainbow contemporary art piece of taking like 10 all colors of the color palette and spraying it onto a piece of canvas, right? That is your schedule most of the time. So what are best practices for managing a busy schedule so it doesn't just become chaos and you prevent as much of the appointment flow chaos as possible in the practice, despite seeing 300 plus patients with 8 or 9 different columns of providers and services each and every day in each shift? Oh, Dr. Sam McGill, start with this one.
I think a big part of that is the front has to be trained really well in scheduling. So once we have these treatment tracks, everything gets put on a green form for orders, that this is what's going to be prescribed to the patient. At the very when the patient is in front of you, our front will schedule their next couple appointments out and just get a commitment for those days. And then they're able to work on that schedule during their downtime shift prep. So either they're coming in earlier on days, we have allocated times for them to do that, because when you're looking and playing Tetris with a schedule, when it's that busy and there's that many service centers and the patient's going to be in your office for 2 hours and they can only commit to like a couple hour slot, and you're playing around with all these other patients that are coming in, that's going to require some time to just step away and play Tetris with the schedule. So we have a pretty good system where the front gets trained on saying, okay, on these days you can do a TPI, but then you can't do like a re-exam on the same day. So that can't happen. So they're given those kind of little legends, I guess you would call it. So they have their legends to kind of refer back to. And then everything else is kind of color coordinated to say, all right, we can do a decompression if they're going to then jump into like rehab right away, and then their chiro schedule. So they can play Tetris. And then in between, if there is a wait time, like let's say it's going to be 5 to 10 minutes of a wait for a patient, which is fine. What we have is little, in every single waiting chair at every service center, we added little massage chairs that we got from Amazon. So the patient's sitting there waiting, so it doesn't feel like a wait. They're getting a nice little massage on this waiting chair, and the patients now just know to walk to it. So even if there is going to be little gaps in the schedule when you're finagling it, it's going to be okay for the patient because they're still kind of going through and getting massaged. So that works really, really well for them. And then once the front finishes that schedule and they hand it back for them, exactly what Violet does is what we do. We schedule everything out and then we get that commitment from the patient to make sure that this works. And if there's any changes, like we're on top of it and letting the patient know that they're the priority, even though on the inside you might be screaming that like you have to redo 36 visits now again because their schedule changed. And it is frustrating, but keeping that tone level high and being like, not a problem. Our priority is to get you taken care of and get you to that goal of hiking or doing whatever it is that patient Y. And then in the back end, they're able to continue to utilize that time. So making sure that your front has enough time away from everything else that they're doing at the front to have some quiet time to work on those schedules. Maybe having those conversations with the managers or the executives, whoever that's going to be, is going to be critical, I think.
That's huge. That's awesome. We're gonna get some bonus time going here for you guys. For those that can stick around past the hour, top of the hour, we'll stick around for as long as we can for you guys. But I do want to make some announcements here quickly, and I want to get to a few more points on this. August 3rd and 4th, guys. Next common closing is coming up just around the corner. August 3rd and 4th, communication and closing seminar. Can't wait to have you guys there. And August 25th and 26th, we'll be seeing you guys here in Clearwater, Florida, for our next 7th Division Mastermind, as well as our next team building workshop, both in person, and that workshop will be live streamed on Zoom. So mark your calendars, August 25th and 26th, as well as communication closing seminar. Part C is going to be August 3rd and 4th. And don't forget, this weekend, we'll be seeing you guys in Livermore, California for our training center and workshop happening at the office of Dr. Matt Alexander, and team will be hosting us in Livermore, California. So book your tickets if you haven't yet. Last couple of days here before that. Can't wait to have you guys. All right. So let's keep this conversation going. If our guest speakers can continue, we appreciate that. If not, we totally understand too. But let me ask Rita and Nelson here at Pro Wellness, same thing. What has been your guys' best practices for, what are some musts for every front desk on managing a busy schedule, whether preparation or the ability to play Tetris or organize it? What's your guys' best practices with busy appointment types and busy high volume offices?
So kind of like Violet said, we make sure that Dana, who is our case manager, gets those times, gets those days that works best for them whenever they're coming in for their review of findings. So once that's handed to us while the patient is on their therapy, we're getting them completely scheduled out for their whole 24 visits. And we have that physical copy there for them and tell them, hey, look over this when you come back for your first actual visit. After this visit, let us know, make a check mark. We can always move this around. We have slots available definitely right now while we're trying to build back up.
And that's helped us out a lot recently doing that, and us working as a team to make sure everybody is scheduled out and everybody is where they need to be in their treatment plan.
And that really helps out with, since it's already scheduled out, we're very little missed appointments unless it is something comes up. We do use what I call the scare tactic of the missed appointment fee, because no one wants to pay $20 for nothing. So they'll either end up coming in or reschedule for a makeup day. So But yeah, pretty much we've been doing pretty good. We have our 90+% show rate. So
And I think what else helps is when you have somebody beside you that we bounce off each other, me and Nelson, y'all can, we can both look at each other and say, hey, what would you do? We both help each other. We both guide each other to whatever's needed, or you just got to have each other's back too in the office to be able to make it work for you, the patients, or anybody.
I love it. Perfect. That's great. Awesome. Well, with that being said, let's do some final words here. Again, words of advice you guys want to wrap up with. I'll start with Violet, that all these awesome front desk rock stars, office managers, and practice owners should know about not only being an amazing front desk rock star, first impressions coordinator, and getting that valuable final product achieved of patients that are complete on their doctor's recommended care programs efficiently and on time. Any final words you'd give, Violet, to help accomplish that and more frequently?
Yes, I say be personable with your patients. Learn about their lifestyle or what's going on with them, what's important to them, because the closer you are, I mean, the more you can connect with them, it's easier to keep them on track. They seem to, and give them the freedom to say what's there for them regarding the visit or the office or the treatments. So this way they feel heard, and then you guys can actually have input towards their future cares and appointments.
Absolutely.
But you gotta book them out all the way through. That's important on the first time. I mean, once they sign the paper, hey, I want to fix my problem, you gotta get them booked.
Perfect. Words of advice, sage words of advice, Violet. Thank you. That's awesome. Dr. Sam McGill, anything you want to wrap up with final words?
Yeah, absolutely. For the first impressions coordinator, the front desk rock stars that are on here, if you're noticing that systems or anything that's not being implemented maybe the right way, or there's a better way to do certain things, or you're noticing these problems, I would absolutely encourage you guys to develop these CSWs or like solution-based kind of approaches to stuff, and then put those together and then present them to your leads or your managers. That way you're like, hey, this is the solution that I've thought of, and just say this is okay, and then get their approval on that. That way, not only are you involved in the process that's working well for you, since you guys are the ones doing these systems on a day-to-day basis, and you guys are the experts on that. So if there's a better way to do it, I'm pretty sure management, I know we do, we want to hear it out and we want to make it easier for you. In terms of the executive side of things, from managers that are kind of on the call or executives, it's so important to not only set aside time to continue to drill and retrain the front, even if it's on stuff that they've already kind of mastered, to make sure that you're on the same page. Because in the day-to-day stuff, not only are the patients busy, but like we're all busy, right? Like your team's busy. So it's important to understand that they need work-life balance and all these other factors. But drilling with them is going to be really important, and stepping in and doing little audit checks. We're starting to do that right now. And we're seeing that, you know, there's areas that can be improved, or areas that we're realizing, hey, we need to come up with a better system for this, or the team's already come up with a better system. So we need to change the protocol of how it's kind of written. So there's an opportunity for not the executives to touch base with your front impressions coordinators and figure out what could be done better and what they need from you to continue to be successful.
Excellent. I love that. That's great. Dr. Dinelli, anything you want to add here as our final touch, right? To help our front desk rock stars and first impressions coordinators get their VFP more effectively. Any final words?
Yeah, I would say inter-office communication, making sure that everybody has a communication source between each other. So that way front desk, case manager, doctor all has something to refer to, whether it's about a specific patient. So that way, if you guys start noticing a problem developing, you attack it before it ever becomes a bigger problem. And whether that's making alert systems in your software, whether it's using a different software, alerting other staff members if you hear or notice something, maybe somebody's having a bad day and you notice it at the front desk, anything like that, those little details make a big difference, and you guys can have that communication passed off to somebody else that's going to be handling that situation. So I think just making sure that everybody kind of has eyes open, ears open, and when you have something, it's being passed on so everybody can be aware and ready to attack the problem.
I love it. Thank you very much, guys, for not only being a part of this, but also being a part of this week's virtual mentorship session. Let's go ahead and give it up if we can. A big visual round of applause for our speakers today. Thank you guys for joining us today. Let's give it up for them. Excellent. Awesome. We appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy days to help guide, mentor, train, and teach and share. It means the world. And because of that, it's going to allow all of us to serve our communities that much more and to keep this mission forward to making a much healthier, but also to turn the trajectory of healthcare on a grassroots level in our country, one practice at a time. So thank you to our amazing speakers. Thank you for all of you guys for joining us today and for doing what you do every day to be your accountability partner to your patients' well-being and to their health. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you this weekend in Livermore, California for our training center and workshop. And we'll see you for another virtual mentorship session next Tuesday, 12 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. Until then, keep rocking, guys. Take care now. Bye-bye.